Max, what are your thoughts with next season having 3 raids? Will it be the first guild to clear all the raids or separate races? I don't have an answer for either of those things for you. How things used to work, the last time we had separate raid releases like this, there are 2 that come to mind. The most similar is the beginning of Mists of Pandaria. They released Mogush Vaults 2 years later, or 2 weeks later, they released Heart of Fear. 2 weeks later, they released Terrace of Endless Spring. I believe Method on 25-man won Mogush Vaults. They came in second in Heart of Fear, and they won Terrace of Endless Spring. But because of that, they won the entire tier. It was all one raid tier, but even though they lost one of them, they still won the tier, right? Kind of similar to, like, beginning of Legion, even though the time frame of the raids is a lot more spread out. Exorcist won Emerald Nightmare, and then Method won Trial of Valor, and then Exorcist won Nighthold, and Exorcist came in first for the entire tier. Another funny thing, I believe Serenity came in second during Nighthold. I believe that's true, and they died right after, and I think Method came third. I could be making that up. Can someone clarify that for me? I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Didn't Serenity get third? Maybe Serenity got third. I'm not sure. I can look it up. We can all look it up. So this is WAD, which would make this Hellfire Citadel. And that makes this the tier I'm looking at, but WoW Progress's data is borked. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. So you're asking this question, like, let's say, like, we win the 6 boss raid and the 1 boss raid. Wait, sorry, are the 6 boss raid and the 1 boss raid being released at the same time? I believe they are, right? So I think those will be considered one raid. That would be like Heart of Fear. It's not 2 separate raids. Like, let's say theoretically, they released 5 raids. Each of them had 2 bosses and they all came out at the same time at the beginning of a patch. That would all be one raid. The Race to World First would be 10 out of 10 Mythic and would not be 5 individual 2 out of 2s. Does that make sense? So the 6 and the 1 are going to be their own raid. And we can look at this today. What Blizzard apparently said is that the 2 boss raid that comes out later is intended to be hard. So here's my theory. I think the 6 boss raid plus the 1 boss raid, I bet the hardest boss that is going to exist in there is probably as hard as like Nexus King was. A little over 100 pulls. Maybe there's something a little harder than that, but it's just 1 boss. Why do I say that? Because Blizzard said that the 2 boss raid that comes out later is intended to be like really difficult, and all the tier is going to drop in the first raid. So I think the first Mythic raid that's coming out is not intended to be the race. It's intended to be like the gear for the patch, and I think it's Blizzard's next innovation into figuring out how to create the game for the Race to World First and how to create the game for everyone else. I think all the gear you're going to want in the patch is coming from the first raid. I think there's not going to be a Forge Weaver in there that's just way too hard, way too early. That raid's for the community. It's going to have all the gear you want. It's going to be easy to progress. And then what I think is that next raid that comes out is going to have 2 bosses that are absolutely fucking nuts. Like, if you're not a Race to World First guild, you're probably not even zoning in. But the reality is, if it doesn't have crazy gear, you don't really care. So this is my theory. I think Blizzard is trying to find a different way to challenge the Race to World First guilds and not grief the rest of the community. And I think they're also trying to kill splits. So yes, are we going to do splits for the first couple weeks on that 6 boss mythic plus 1 boss mythic and heroic splits? Yes, definitely yes. But I bet it's not going to be worth to split the next 2 because you're already going to be so geared to where you're going to be able to like kind of start the race right away. This is my theory. It might be cooked, but I think that's what they're going for. So if that's the case, we'll probably fly out for the 2 boss raid and not fly out for the previous one. And what else that might mean is if the first 7 bosses, the 6 boss plus 1 boss thing, are not too hard, it might mean NA reset, we kill that shit in like 2 days and it's not even close for EU guilds. That's weird and bad, but if it's not really the race, then it doesn't really matter. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we kill, what happens in every single raid, except for this tier with the Fractalus goof, is we usually kill the first 6 bosses before really EU has a chance to anyway, because we're just in the raid a day early and they're not that hard. This raid might just be those 6 bosses and they're just releasing the last 2 in a couple weeks, if that makes sense. So definitely still not advocating for non-global release or anything, and it still sucks for EU to be like second to the content and stuff in those weeks, but like even in the scenario where Like if they are truly making easier content and they're separating an easy raid and a hard raid, I don't think people are going to really care about World First for it. You know what I mean? Like if we go in there and smoke that shit in 8 hours, like we're not nerd screaming. You know, we're like, all right, cool. I can't wait till the raid comes out. Max, are you guys ready for the Asmongold viewers yelling Blizzard is catering to the 1%? If my theory's right, isn't this them exactly not catering to the 1%? Like they're actually kind of making this a little weird for us. I feel like this might be their shot at like having them be separate, if that makes sense. But also I feel like Asmongold viewers are currently probably concerned with other things other than World of Warcraft. I think that's a little different. Max, I think it's funny how people get upset about the race when you guys literally put in hundreds of hours to get the kills, which would make us guilds months to do time-wise. I don't even understand what you're saying. Why does those two things don't seem like they have anything to do with each other? But I mean, people, it's just like a buzzword. Like there's a lot of this in WoW. There's a lot of you're not a kid anymore syndrome, which is like people try to point out all this flaws in the game and how it got so much worse from when they loved it, and the reality is they're just not a kid anymore. They have other things going on in their life, and that childish wonder you have about games just isn't the same, and they can't seem to figure that out. So they just like aimlessly blame it on things that make sense. You guys have heard a bunch of them over the years, and I think one of them recently has just been a race to world first thing. It's like, oh, the 1%, the MDI, the race, all Blizzard cares about is this, and that's the reason the game is bad, but have yet to ever really make any kind of credible argument that that's actually occurring. Except for recently. Actually, like I think recently you can make a statement for that. Whatever is going on with the Styxes of the world and the Forge Weavers is really fucking stupid. Like there's a lot of like people are like, oh well, people don't go into Mythic Week 1. Yeah, they do. They kill the first 3 bosses instantly, and then they have no chance of killing the 4th boss. It's so stupid. Like world top 10 guilds. Sorry, how many guilds killed Forge Weaver in the first reset? Does anyone know the answer to that? Was it literally 3? Like Liquid, Echo, and Method killed Forge Weaver, and everyone else is just waiting until the reset. Like that's really dumb. Do you know how good like some of the top 10 world guilds are that just raid less hours, and they're just sitting there being like, they didn't make this boss for us? Like that's actually so stupid. Oh, another EU guild and a Chinese guild got it before reset. Okay, same point though, right? Like that's not what a 4th boss is supposed to be.